I went to bed at 10. I watched some forensic files, because there are crazy murder cases out there that you could not believe. That show, and they're showing like 20 different ones, one after the next, and there is no gap between them. It's the meanest thing. There is no way for you to switch off. You always go like, oh, fuck, that sounds great.
And in your mind, are you thinking of
all of
projects?
Every single one of these would be an amazing movie. I don't know where they dig them up, but Americans are so creative when they commit murders.
Oh.
It's insane. No one in Germany would ever think of that stuff. So.
Sounds like a compliment.
I don't believe that for a second.
I'm telling you.
Didn't the guy eat his friend in Germany?
We have the occasional cannibal in Germany, sure.
Yeah. Which reminds me, a couple of cannibals are eating a clown. One turns to the other and says, "Does he taste funny to you?"
That's.
I had to get that in.
You got a library.
I hope you filmed that.
I did.
Atta girl.
Great, awesome.
Are we done yet?
Done. That's it. You can go have lunch. So I guess my first question is, where did you come up with the concept for
Well, it's a remake of a Thai movie from 2006 called 13 Game of Death. That's where the idea came from. And Jason Blum, who's producing the Paranormal Activity movies, he pitched it to me as one of a possible project. And I just loved the concept, and he said, do with it whatever you want. And it just lent itself to that because of the structure of the 13 challenges, that we could replace whatever we wanted to replace, keep the set pieces that we really loved, and kind of hone it that way.
So, but what is the background of that film?
That's a good question. I think it's based on a comic book by a man whose name I can't pronounce, but we're Facebook buddies now. And he's a very, very sweet man.
Is he Thai?
He's Thai, yeah. And he sent me the comic book in Thai, so I can't really read it. But it's interesting that he does 7 of the missions on one page. It's a collage where he has the setup, the first act, then he goes, and then this guy goes through all the shit, 1 page of 7 challenges, and then he does the showdown. So it's a very different structure from us.
Is it 13 in the comic book?
Yeah. It's called the 13th Quiz Show.
So how different is this film from the Thai?
It's quite different because we introduced a subplot that is taking over the entire second half of our movie that doesn't exist in the original. Because I felt it was important to bring it more into his kind of personal life than the original does. In the original, the protagonist is very isolated, doesn't really have a social life, and I felt like he should have something to lose. He should have something that the antagonist could go after and destroy, so that he's paying a price. He not only has something to gain, but there's something for him to lose. So the entire ending is completely different.
Well, it kind of reminds me of a little bit of the film Compliance. I don't know if you've seen that film.
I was on set even when
really?
they shot that, yeah.
Well, but it kind of reminds me of like the Milgram experiments and how, I mean, it's not really exactly the same because would the phone caller, would the person on the other line be the voice of authority?
Right.
Right? And then little by little you're getting somebody.
Yeah, it's just the element of greed is taken out of it, and I think with Compliance it is about authority. If like a guy who pretends to be a cop tells you to get a blowjob from an innocent girl, would you do it? I think Compliance, which is an amazing movie, the big achievement is that they make that believable. And with us it was the same thing, that from challenge to challenge you had to keep up the believability of it all, that the audience would go like, I could imagine myself making that mistake of doing that task. And from task to task, there's a reason why there are 13 tasks and not just 2 tasks, because you need that step from task to task to be small enough for someone to go, oh, I've done all this other crazy stuff already, and I'd be giving all that up, and that would all be wasted if I didn't, have that small infraction more. And that there is a point of no return where you suddenly look back and go like, oh my God, I've turned into a monster, and I didn't realize. It's like that, what can you boil and they never realize that they're being boiled? A frog or something, or a toad, something crazy. Something, if you put a frog into a pot of cold water and then slowly increase the temperature, he will boil to death and not notice because it's a small increase. And it's the same with us.
God, you know some crazy stuff.
I don't even know if that's...
But the frog's mother will notice.
Yeah, she'll ask questions for sure.
So tell me about the actors, working with the actors, and
horrible
A lot of-
experience.
You
There's
just
a lot of
horrible.
great talent here.
He's actually, he told me that after this he's going back to documentary filmmaking.
because in the end you get what you pay for, and then you're stuck with these people. You know, and a lot of them don't know what they're doing, and you don't have the time to explain.
Unfortunately, since this was low budget, nothing was paid for.
Nothing was paid for.
So you got what you paid for.
Yeah, you just have.
So
to
why do you do a project like this? I mean, what was it in the script that you said, I have to do this film?
Yeah, Ron. Why?
I ask myself that question more so now than ever. The writing was phenomenal. You know, before I knew, you know, or ever heard of Daniel Stamm, I just was completely enraptured. That's not the word I'm looking for. By what I'd read, and so I already had a predilection to wanting to be in this film. And then when I met Daniel and saw what his approach was going to be, I really wanted to be in the film. And then the exercise just became like, how could I contribute to this that would be helpful to the ultimate final result? So we found this character of Detective Chilcote, and both of us agreed, you know, would make it possible. And so that's it. So it's always, to me, the first and foremost thing is script.
That's awesome answer. So what is it that attracts you to kind of darker characters, darker films? I mean, what is it that...
I'm not attracted to anything in particular. I'm only attracted to great writing. And it would be better if I was able to not repeat myself. So I'm always looking for ways to access new things inside of me and challenge myself, but also not for the sake of challenging myself, because you know you don't want to put yourself in a movie where you're going to stand out and not be helpful to the ultimate. So it's the balancing act of finding characters that I haven't played before, because I really want, my goal before they close the box on me is to say that, you know, I examined as many facets of you know, the funky wiring that is a human being as I possibly could have. And so that's the fun of it for me. With Chilcote, he's the first character I ever played that is making a concerted effort to not be noticed. He's trying to just, you know, I even asked for the wardrobe to be just really generic detective, no style whatsoever, because I thought that the less anybody takes note of this guy, the more effective he is at what he's engaged to do.
Because it's hard not to notice you in the first place, so.
Yeah, it's a stretch for. I mean, I'm usually playing guys that are bigger than life and you know occupy a huge space in their world, and so that was what fascinated me about this guy, was like, can I play a guy who kind of slips in and out, you know, after the fact, does his thing, and you know nobody kind of knows he was there.
So now that you've worked with him, I mean, how did you like him as a director? How is he different from anybody else that you've worked with?
It's two different experiences. You know, the one of working on the set was incredibly pleasant. There was just this wonderful boyish enthusiasm and real appreciation for what he was getting from his actors, myself included. So that it made you feel respected and adored and appreciated, which is nice. But then seeing the film the other night was my respect for Daniel has gone through the roof, because he ended up making, it could have been a disaster. This is not a meek film. This is not this is a bold film with really big transitions and really big emotional arcs for all of the for the main characters, the family, you know, Weber's family, Brindles,
Brindles.
and I mean, you gotta throw down when you're making a movie like this. You know, it's not about being safe. And in order to do that, and then do it seamlessly and effectively, where, you know, the audience continues to be as engaged as I was when I first read it, that's exactly what I saw the other night. So my admiration for Daniel is now way more than I ever thought it would be. And I hope he doesn't hear me say that.
Can I get a copy of that tape?
Yes, definitely. So there wasn't anybody who kind of held back, who was like, oh, I don't know about this scene or about this moment.
I think there is something contagious about really great actors that are there to challenge themselves. They're not there to play it safe, you know, and they have the range to do it, so they're not afraid of it. And once your protagonist, if you have a Mark Webber who is excited about trying new stuff, like every time you walk up to him with an adjustment, he goes like, "Give it to me. What are we doing?" You know. And I think everyone else very quickly is on board with that, and there's that atmosphere of we're here to play with each other. They're feeding off of each other. That's, I think, something that was challenging for the Chilcote character, because he is basically playing in a vacuum. Everyone else can very much feed off of themselves, even though Mark is by himself a lot too. But the Chilcote character always comes in after the fact. He's always one step behind, you know, that's kind of the allure of that character. But I think the family people, they really fed off of each other. And in rehearsals, we did a lot of improv. We improvised their backstory together. We had a picture of the dead mother that Elliot and his brother would talk to, so that they could hear their inner monologues. I think they knew each other in and out by the time that we arrived on set. And I think they really made the best possible use out of that. So there wasn't really anyone, even the day players, I think were so quickly caught up in that atmosphere that there was no one holding back, really.
Good. And my final question is, how are you guys enjoying South by Southwest in Austin?
It's rainy, it's cold,
Oh yeah.
but everyone has the time of their life, and it's just this atmosphere, talking of infectious, you know, even just walking to a venue, you're in such a good mood by the time you arrive at that venue, because it's just street craziness. And the funny thing is that it reminds me a lot of New Orleans, and we shot in New Orleans. That energy, you know, is very similar to that.
I just, I'm thrilled by the fact that I'm in an environment that is welcoming these kind of movies, you know, that are labors of love for me, you know, and here we are, you know, in a world that really appreciates that effort. So I'm thrilled to be here in Austin. I'm thrilled for the fact of this festival. And all of the movies I've ever had here were my favorites, like just little, you know, little gems that meant a lot to me personally. And you know, they ended up here at South by Southwest, so the place will always hold a special little spot in my